So the topic for today's webinar is going to be general settings. Before I dive into sort of the different sections and the different links within this page, does anybody have any questions or anything top of mind that they'd like to bring to the discussion today? All right, I'm going to go ahead and dive right in. So general settings. This settings page is going to be available to you if you have access to the settings pages. And these can be limited based on your user role permissions. So not everyone will be able to access each of these sections, right? President users will be able to access everything here. And then as you adjust each of the roles, obviously, these will be limited to those particular users. So going in from top to bottom here, you'll be able to access your general settings page. If you click on your name and you click on general settings, it should be listed right here. And from this page, you'll see that there are several sections. There's sort of a general setup here for like your company settings, some lab settings, your own personal settings, which I'll dive into as well, stack integrations. This you probably won't see on your existing database because this is actually for a separate tier. Billing information, and if you have community associations within your database, which I don't think any of you do, this would also be accessible here. And then you'll be able to see there's accounting. If you're using any of the approval flows, whether it's bill approvals or purchase order approvals, users. So this is where you'll be able to adjust those user roles and permissions, manage users. So whether you're creating or deleting users or adjusting their names or their titles. Auditing center, which is, where you're able to actually see all the activity within AppFolio, et cetera. And then you can also adjust your property groups here. There's a workflow management section, which really just takes you to the workflow setup page. You'll have an owners section, a leasing section, documents, maintenance, communication. If you're utilizing risk mitigation, sorry, I have a kitten here. So if she pops into the webinar, I apologize. She's 2 months old. Risk mitigation, tags, and affordable housing. So I'll dive into each of these sections. But I just wanted to kind of give you an overview of what the layout of this page looks like. Any questions so far? Okay, awesome. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen in case there's a lag. Thanks. All right, so I'm going to go into company settings here. And so in company settings, this is where you would essentially adjust all of your, contact information for your company. So your company name, your phone number, fax number, if you're using a fax, time zone, et cetera. So you kind of get the idea, right? You also have the ability to adjust the address for letters and envelopes. So if you're utilizing the letters function under communications and you're leveraging that tool to send out actual letters, when you're printing out the letter and the envelope, this would be the address that would pull in. Federal tax information would be here for like your 1099s. And then there is an owner portal setting adjustment here as well, which would allow you to adjust the return email addresses for your owners. And so that's really the company settings there. You also have the ability to adjust your logos. And so if you want to have your logo exist on letterheads or, envelopes, you'd be able to add the logo here. And then portfolios are a section where you can actually create different portfolios if you have different naming conventions. Maybe for like a group of properties or a specific property. Maybe you have like a property name that you want to exist on your correspondence. You'd be able to create your own portfolios based on your needs. And so For example, I've created one here called Marshall Reddick. There's one property associated with this portfolio. Their address is different than the address listed on the company settings page, right? So a little bit different there. And the phone number is also different. So that can be helpful if, again, you have different naming conventions, different addresses that you want to exist on your correspondence that differ from the company settings page. Any questions so far? Looks like there might be something in the chat. Oh, no. All right. And so now I'll just go back to my general settings page. AppFolio Lab settings. This is actually a really great page to look at. We update this, I'd say regularly, maybe like once or twice a quarter. You might notice under what's new, if there is a new lab added, that's where you'll notice an update to this page probably first, or you can verify this page to see if there's been anything added. But basically, these are features that we are working on before they're released to all. And so this is kind of like a beta page in a sense. We call it AppFolio Labs. And so there's a little bit of a disclaimer at the top here that informs you that, this is a feature that might be actively in development and our team is working on it, which is why it's not live to all yet. And so you'll have the ability to turn these on and off on your own. Again, this will be based on your user permissions, right? So not, for example, a property manager probably wouldn't be able to, click on this page at all and turn these settings on and off. So there's a couple of labs that we have going right now. Offline inspections within the mobile app. So this is the inspections tool, right, that your maintenance team might use or that your property management team might use when they are doing a turn upon a move out, right? That might be a reason to utilize the inspections tool. So utilizing this would allow those property managers or those maintenance team members to utilize the inspections tool, even if they don't have access to the internet. So they would basically be able to log into the app and log everything within the inspection. And when they return to a, within range, right, or if they have access to the internet, then all of the notes and all of the data that they've added to that inspections page will automatically load into AppFolio. So they don't have to do double entry or use a notepad or worry about roaming. Essentially, they'd just be able to use the app for the inspections, even if they don't have access to the internet, which is pretty cool. This is a mention option, which I think we've gone over this before, but the option here is to turn on the functionality to @ someone. So if you're looking to mention someone and that they get a direct message in their inbox, you can, for example, @ John Smith in any notes section. So for example, if I were to go to, let's say, a tenant page, and this is my demo site, so don't worry about me reaching out to anybody in your database. If I were to say @ and then reach out to a specific person, if that were turned on, then I would be able to mention them, and the message would go to their email. And the other benefit there is that when you're using the notes section, it's helpful to use it as an audit log in a sense, right? Because you can verify the messaging. I'll go ahead and turn that on and just show you what that looks like in case you are not familiar. So if I go to the notes section again and just add a note, and then you'll notice here I clicked @ and then there's a drop down of users that appear. And so if I were to send a message to myself, right, and click save, so it'll appear as a note, right? And then it'll show that I've added somebody, and I can edit this or I can delete it if I need to. And let's see if I actually received an email from myself. I did. There we go. So this is the note that I just mentioned myself in, and it's telling me to click here to view the note. I can also view all of my ats if I want to, if there's like a bunch of notes that I've received. There's actually a new notes mentioned page, which is helpful. It's kind of a summary for you to be able to verify all of the notes that you've received that maybe you didn't get to. So again, just a good way to kind of communicate within your database, and also in a sense, kind of an audit log in a way, because you're able to verify all of your communications within your team. Questions so far?
I have a question going back to company settings, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So at the end of company settings, we can set up our message when we're sending owner statements or reporting. Is there any plan to create templates so I don't have to go in, type a whole new message for, let's say, a final statement for an owner that we're closing out with, or annual statements, or I mean, it seems like something easy to do is to create a template and we can just choose from those instead of like this whole process. So just wondering.
Yeah. Are you asking specifically about like the letters function and like utilizing templates within letters when you're sending statements to owners?
Well, if you go to company settings, you have that one template to send when you send your statements, right?
Right. Right. And
yeah,
so
I'm just wondering if there's a plan to create the ability to create several templates depending on the reporting situation.
yeah, for sure. So this is what would be emailed in the owner packets, but you could potentially utilize the letters functionality as well. So let's take a look and see what we have here. So let me look at the owner section. I don't know if you'd be able to generate a different template for, like, how many templates would you want to create, I guess would be my question.
I mean, off the top of my head, 4 or 5.
Okay, gotcha.
But that would save me, because I literally go in, oh, this is the final statement. Okay, I'm going to go change, copy what's in there, put in the new message, go back, rerun the report, send it, then go back to company settings, change it back to the monthly statement. I mean, it's just ridiculous, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. Let me look into that and see if we have any plans to make that a little bit more flexible. So the question is, how many, like, is there the ability to create multiple messages or templates?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if there's a workaround, I don't know about it, but I think you were maybe going to show that.
Yeah, so I mean, you can generate multiple owner letters, right, within the letters function. What I'm not clear on is whether or not that would allow you to, utilize a letter or several letter templates from this section when you're sending out those statements.
No, it doesn't. I haven't seen anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me take a look at that though and see what options we have.
Okay.
And yeah, I'd be happy to follow up with you on that for sure.
Cool.
Very good question. Yeah, definitely. And I've marked that in my notes, so I will be following up with you on that. Any other questions about that particular setting or anything else that we've covered so far? Okay, and just to recap, this was the this section that that Chaplin was referring to here. So this is the owner packet email settings. When you're sending out the email packet or the statement, this is the email body that is listed out. You can adjust this one particular setting here with the messaging, as well as the return email address, et cetera. And the question was, is there a way to create more than one of these? So
yeah, and just one more point on that. It's very hard to train my team on that process that I quickly outlined of like going in, deleting, sending everything, going back. It's just tough. It's a hard workaround, and it really, yeah, I think it would be helpful. That's all.
Yeah, for sure. No, thanks, Chapin. That was really helpful. Did I say your name correctly? I think I've asked you this before. Is it Chapin or Chapin?
It's Chapin. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, perfect.
It's okay. It's all right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and you're specifically referring to this email body, right? Like adjusting this particular section.
Yeah, I think how it would work is you could create templates there, and then when you're in the owner statement module, then you can
Yeah.
choose the template, the email template to send with the report.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. And let me find out if there's any workaround there. There is this checkbox at the top that allows you to, if you have multiple portfolios, like what we were referring to earlier here, like if you have a different name, address, and phone number that you want to appear on your statements or on your correspondence, if you have multiple of those and you wanted to utilize a portfolio that's associated with the property that the owner is, that the owner has, then you could check this off. But that wouldn't really solve the problem that you're looking to solve here. So
Right.
we'll continue to look into that. Thank you for bringing.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course. All right. So lab settings, and I'll just kind of quickly, give you an overview of the remaining ones here. And again, this is really going to be something that's available for like president users to turn on and off. You'll have the ability to verify if there's any new labs by going to this page, or if you click on what's new, typically you'll see that there will be like an announcement of a new lab added. Easy to read insert fields for association letters. This is probably not relevant to you guys because this is for community associations or HOAs. So in the event that you do ever manage any HOAs, this will be this will be a lab that's available to you for now. And then we have the smart SMS response, which basically is utilizing AI to help you compose messages to your residents or to anybody that you're corresponding with via AppFolio. All right, so moving on to manage my settings. This is actually a page that a lot of folks don't really notice. I think mainly because it's I don't know if it's super obvious or not. But essentially this page is helpful not just for your own information, right? Like your email, your name. You can actually add a profile photo now, which is kind of fun. There's also a section for property staff. This is relevant to the workflow functionality. So I won't dive too deep into this, but if anybody has questions about it, I'm happy to dive in there. This is really the section that I wanted to talk to you about, which is the notification section. So many of you are probably familiar with this, and if this is information that you already know, it'll just be review for you. But this section is helpful when you want to adjust the notifications that you're receiving, right? Whether you're receiving those via email, some of these allow you to receive push notifications via text from AppFolio. And you'll notice that there's different sections, right? So there's leasing, maintenance, residents, maintenance, technicians, vendors, communication, et cetera. There's a lot of notifications that you can adjust based on your needs. There might be certain things that you don't need to see every day, right? For example, like an accountant might not need to see new rental applications that are received, right? That's probably more for like a leasing agent or a property manager. And this is where you'd be able to go in and make those adjustments based on your needs. Again, renewal options selected by tenant. Maybe that's something that the property manager needs to see. Maintenance, for example, if there is a maintenance tech that's assigned to a work order, they can, select or deselect to receive an email and a push notification. So these are all based on actions that happen within AppFolio. And essentially what happens is an automatic notification is either emailed or text messaged to that user based on their settings. So you'll notice there's a couple more here. Client experience, workflows. If you're mentioned in a note, right? You noticed earlier that I showed you that email that I received from my note that I mentioned myself in. I can also adjust that to receive a push notification. You can also adjust your email signature by setting that up here. And you can also adjust the send replies to this email specifically if you have another email that you want to have email replies go to. You have your maintenance settings here, which is, there's not a whole lot happening here, but this is for tracking work orders by default. So this will allow you to track all work orders that are received. If you want to receive all of them, you can. If not, you don't have to. They can just be relevant to you if you are assigned to those work orders. You can uncheck this particular box. So let's say let's say you want to receive notifications just for the work orders that are being assigned to you. Then you would leave this box unchecked and you would adjust the notification from the maintenance section when you're assigned to a work order. But if you want to follow, maybe you're like the maintenance lead, you want to follow all the maintenance work orders that are coming in, you can select this option. Vacancy posting and contact information. So if you're posting a vacancy and you want to be contacted at a specific email address or phone number, and this is for your password and all of that information. So obviously that's you know, based on your all of this is based on your preferences, right? This is your settings. And then you can also adjust for the two-step verification as well here. And there's also a section that shows where you've logged in for security purposes. This is a section that you can adjust if you are utilizing corporate accounting. And then, of course, there is the property group and portfolio settings. So if you're looking to adjust the relevant properties or property groups for a specific user, if you're trying to limit the you know, what they have access to, if you want them to only visually see anything that's coming in for example, Anna's properties, if this is selected, then that particular user would only have access to that particular property or property group. Any questions so far? And I'm keeping an eye on. Oh, sorry.
Vanessa, a quick question. I don't see that profile photo on the profile. The button you had, I don't have it. Is that something?
That might be because it is right now it's specific to maybe a different tier. That might be why. So our max tier is sort of a new tier that we have at AppFolio, which includes a leasing CRM. And that in particular includes like a photo section within the CRM itself. So that might be why it's not available yet, because there's not really maybe there's not a use case for it within the plus tier yet. But I can verify that for you and you know, see if that's what it is. I'm guessing that's the why behind that.
Thank you. And also the other one, it was note section. There was something we needed to do here. So we make sure when you mention someone.
Yeah, so if you go to the AppFolio Labs settings, and if you were to go down to the notes section here, you want to make sure this is turned on. So if it says status off, you'll want to just click that on button, right? So if you, for example, I'll just click this. This is the notification that you'll receive when you're trying to turn on that particular lab. So if I go ahead and click that, right, then you'll notice that status changes. So you'll want to make sure that that's on. And then if you have that turned on and you go to any notes section within your database, so I'm just going to go my notes section and add a note here. If I click at, you'll notice that it allows me to see a drop down of all of the users within my database. And then I can also just type in a name as well. And once I've typed that in and I click enter, at that point I can type in my message, and that message will be logged and sent to that particular user.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Moving on, update billing information. So this is basically just going to send you to, oh, you know what? This is probably not going to allow me to do this because I am not an actual client. So I can't really demo this for you, but this is if you have to update your billing information, you have that ability to do that here. We'll skip this part for the community association bank settings, because this is probably not relevant to your team. Accounting settings. All right. So within accounting settings, we have, again, so you'll notice that things are kind of sectioned out within AppFolio, right? Like we have, from that general settings page, we have everything kind of organized by section. Same thing with the accounting settings, right? Everything is kind of structured that way to make it easier to navigate. And so you'll notice at the top, these are your key accounts within AppFolio. These are kind of your main rent key accounts for like rental income, if there's additional rent income, subsidized rent income, if you are receiving any subsidy rent, whether it's for like LIHTC properties or tax credit properties or HUD. You have the ability to actually notate that within AppFolio so that you can keep track of the income that's coming in from those organizations and from the tenant separately, right? So that can be helpful just for automating that aspect if you do have properties that are receiving subsidized payments. And then these are all the other key accounts. So all equally important, probably, right? You'll have your operating cash account, your escrow cash account, right? Then you'll have your, and those are going to be initially set up within AppFolio. And I think all of this you guys have preset based on your key renter status. So probably don't need to dive into these too much, but just to kind of give you an overview, these are like the main GL accounts within AppFolio, and they're all within this particular page. We also have the key accounts for GPR reporting, which can be helpful depending on, if you're keeping track of your GPR reports. I can cover that in another demo if you have any questions there. And then we also have the adjustments for receipts. So if you're trying to apply receipts to charges in a specific order, you now have the ability to adjust that if you need to, which is pretty cool. So if you're trying to, for example, base it on a specific order, like if a receipt comes in from a resident and you want it to apply immediately to the oldest charge to the tenant, then you can set it here. If you want it to be the newest, or if you want it to go in a specific GL order. So the first will be rent income, and then you can select the second. Let's see, CAM, I don't think we really need to cover. Bill approvals, this is going to be an option if you have like levels of approval that need to occur within the bill approval process. So let's say if you have, multiple people that need to say yes to paying a bill, right? Whether it's within, a certain amount or based on a GL account, you can actually set up that layer of approval. If you have, again, different approvers that need to be approving a bill before it gets paid. And what that does is it limits certain users from being able to actually complete the payment of a bill. It needs to go through that approval process. Once it's approved, then they're able to actually make that payment, which again can be helpful if there are multiple approvers involved in the pay bills flow. And then let's see. So yeah, check writing, there's the management company check defaults, management fees. If you have any specific way that you want to adjust the over collected management fees, you can have the system not correct it. You can have the system create receipts, credits, etc. So we can cover these in more detail. I want to make sure that we're able to cover everything, so I'm not going to dive into every detail here, but you kind of get the idea. These are all of your accounting settings, right? And so yeah, this is helpful. If you guys want to take a deeper dive into this particular page, I'm happy to go over that with you. Any questions?
Vanessa, sorry, yes, one question, and just this is for us in California. If the people that are applying for our properties ask for itemized receipt for applications cost, where do I find that here?
For itemized receipts for application costs?
Yes.
So would you be printing that out? Like you're asking like when they make that payment where you would actually generate that?
when they pay application fee for, screening processes, and California said we have to provide them with itemized, like
Mhm.
how much are we charging for background? How much are we charging for criminal? How much AppFolio is charging us? I don't see that itemized list anywhere. If they ask, we have to provide that to them.
Got it. So you're asking for like an invoice of sorts, or like, yeah. I can share that out with you with directions on how to create that. And if we want to
Thank
cover
you.
more detail, I'm happy to
Sure. Thank you.
do that. Yeah, sure, no problem. Any questions on the accounting section? Okay, great. All right, so homeowner delinquency process setup. This is again for HOAs, so probably not relevant. This is your, you can actually create management fee automations within AppFolio. So you can actually create schedules based on all properties, specific properties, and you can post your management fees on a daily, weekly, or specific days of the month basis. So this is something that we could probably dive into in more detail if we need to. But if you had an automation schedule that you wanted to set up for specific properties, you could do so on this page. And that's going to be available from the settings page as well. Again, this is going to be your approvals section. So as we saw in accounting settings, I had that bill approval option to enable that. I didn't enable it, so you'll notice it's not listed down here. This is the purchase order approval process, which looks really similar to bill approvals. This is where you'd be able to adjust your approval process for purchase orders. So if you have a price range specifically that needs to be approved by specific users, you can adjust that here, and that's specifically for purchase orders. And then the user roles and permissions section. This is really a helpful way to make sure that you're able to adjust permissions for users within your database. Because you're on Plus, you have the ability to create new user roles. Within AppFolio, historically, it's always been pretty limited as far as like the number of roles that exist. You can always edit existing ones based on your needs. But now with Plus, you actually have the ability to copy and create your own users, right? Which is pretty great. So you can like create your new role title and then make the adjustments as needed. And the benefit to that is, you might have all of the user roles that exist within AppFolio that have already been pre-created for you. And then you might also need to create, for example, I've created vice president, right? This user role will allow you to make the adjustment specifically for users that should have access, for example, to most of the president's access, except for maybe there's certain things that they don't need to see, right? So maybe it's like, maybe they don't need to see owner letter communication or tenant letter communication, right? So that's the user role and permissions section. Again, manage users. You have the ability to add users from this page or delete. The auditing center, which is the section that allows you to look at what everybody's up to. So you'll notice that like if you go to specific pages within AppFolio, you'll have the property page. And then this is just one example. And then you'll have like an audit log down here, right? This is just showing your activity. So the audit log page is actually showing you like sort of a summary of all of the actions that are happening within your database in a given time. So you can adjust based on dates. You can also adjust based on entity. So if you're just trying to see a property, specifically property page entity, you can also search by users and property specific. And so from there, you can actually see all of the actions that are being done. The benefit of this as well is that you can export this into Excel or CSV or PDF. And that way you can actually, excuse me, search for, specific actions a little bit more easily within Excel. And this is also a Plus specific tool. GL account permissions. So this is specific to users or user roles, excuse me, and whether or not you want them to have access to certain GL accounts. So for example, here I have all of my GL accounts listed out here. And let's say I wanted the president user to not have access to income or expenses, which probably wouldn't be correct, right? But basically they wouldn't be able to create any transactions offset to these accounts. So that could be helpful probably for like maybe if it's like, I don't know, accounting or maybe leasing, maybe it's leasing, right? And let's say leasing agents, we don't want them to have access to any of the GL accounts that pertain to expenses. So we'd be able to save that, and that would adjust their user role permissions for GL accounts. Any questions so far? Just going to take a quick pause. I know we have only a few minutes left, so I want to make sure that we can get through the rest of these sections. And I'm checking the chat. Looks like we've got a couple folks that joined and then some people that dropped off. All right, I'm just gonna keep moving through. All right, so property groups. This is a section where if you have groups of properties that you want to have sort of lumped together, for example, let's say you wanted to group based on leasing agents or who leasing agents are assigned to what properties. So for example, I have these 3 properties and I'm going to call these Derek's properties, right? Because I've got Derek, who's one of my property managers. And so I can actually create a property group with these 3 properties. And if I wanted to, I could adjust his settings to make sure that he only has access to those properties within AppFolio. So anytime he's searching for any property, the only ones that would appear for him are the 3 properties that he has access to within that property group. And then this allows you to just manage those property groups. So if you need to change them, like edit or delete, that allows you to adjust that there. This is just the workflow page. So you'll be able to access workflows from that general settings page as well. Management agreement templates will be accessible here. You can create templates by clicking into that link. There's also the option to create addendums from this page. I also have we have a new functionality called PDF owner forms that you can also just upload PDFs and add merge fields, kind of like DocuSign, specifically for management agreements. And then this is a section that allows you to adjust owner portal permissions. So let's say if you have specific owners that you want to be able to see, reports, dashboard, visuals and things like that with the new advanced portal, you can adjust based on a specific property, an owner or property group on how they're actually able to see all this information, right? So if you don't want a specific owner to be able to access reports, as an example, you can remove that permission from them, right? You can also adjust all of your default settings. So if you want none of your owners to be able to see the dashboard or have access to reports, you can actually set that for all of your owners from here. And this simply just allows you to adjust based on, again, owners, properties, property groups, etc. Going into leasing. So this is a section that will allow you to adjust any of the leasing settings that you have database wide, right? So online posting settings will allow you to adjust, for example, allowing prospective tenants to submit guest cards from website listings, for example, you can adjust that here. Or enabling online applications and sending applications to guest cards, right? This is really the section that's going to allow you to either leverage or not leverage functionality within the leasing flow. You also will be able to generate HTML codes to add to your websites or to third parties, if you wanted to just copy and paste that. And if you weren't like, connected via the vacancies page, right, you'd have the ability to access those listings from here. And you'd be able to also create QR codes. So if you wanted to create a QR code for a property or a property group, you can download or copy this QR code and send that out to prospects. Or you could even print this out, put it on a flyer, and put it on a bulletin board, right? Old-fashioned way. Rental application customization. This is really going to allow you to adjust your rental applications based on your preferences. So you'd be able to require, for example, residential history details. Sometimes, you want to require that, so you can check off that box just as one example there, right? This can be really helpful if you're wanting to, really, again, customize that rental application. Screening criteria. I won't dive into this too much because I think that's probably a conversation for another day. But this is for screening specifically. So I think we can probably set up a separate call altogether just to go over that. And then lease settings and lease templates. Again, this is based on your database wide preference, but you can also adjust based on a property basis. And then you'll notice you'll also have access to your lease templates here. Documents, I mentioned PDF forms before. So this is where you'll have the ability to create owner forms, lease and addendum forms, and just resident forms that need to be signed. So that's accessible here as well. You'll have your database-wide maintenance settings here, which you can adjust. So for example, work order settings, you can adjust here across all of your work orders, right? And so on. Project budgeting can also be accessed here if you have projects that you are looking to create budgets for. Those are for like larger maintenance projects. Communication settings, super helpful. We talked a little bit about like emails and templates and things like that. You do have access to text templates as an example. And this is specifically when you're reaching out to prospects, residents, vendors. You can adjust your recipients based on your needs here, right? And then create your templates, which will allow you to reach out to residents or again vendors, owners, etc. more easily, right? Automatic communication settings. This is helpful if you're wanting to, send out automatic communications based on like maybe tenants' birthdays, responses to guest cards, etc. You also have survey settings in here, which will allow you to send out surveys to residents, perhaps like if it's a prospect that you're wanting to send a survey to, or a new resident, or even for maintenance.
Quick question about surveys. Can we create our own surveys with our own questions?
No, so there are surveys that are pre-created within AppFolio. There isn't really a way to adjust those.
Okay.
But that is a really good suggestion. And I have heard that before. Like, is there a way to create or add new questions, right? Like your own. But I can certainly add that to like a product suggestion list and see if it's something that our team is willing to generate.
And then to be able to export the results so we can analyze.
Yeah, so let's see if we have any reports here. So you do have that page specifically to analyze. So if you have specific properties that you're looking at, I don't think I have any specific surveys that have been generated, but you'd be able to see the analysis from this page. And then if I go to surveys here, reports, survey, let's see if I have any survey responses. There we go. So from here, you should be able to filter by the survey type, the property data type. So like date sent or received, date range, and then you can adjust the columns and then grouping as well.
Okay.
All right. And so I know we're going 1 minute over time here. We're almost done. Thanks guys for hanging out. All right, risk mitigation. So this is for like renters insurance information. That's also probably a topic that we can cover on another call entirely. So I won't dive into it too much. If you are using the tag functions, you also have the ability to adjust your tags. So if you have tags that you want to merge or delete, or just adjust, you can do that here. And you can do that in bulk. You can also search for tags, and you can search by tag type as well. So if you have like utility tags. And then affordable housing. So again, this is applicable if you do have programs that your residents receive subsidies from. So that you're receiving payments from for rent, or if they're receiving subsidized rent, you can actually track those programs in here. And so from that, you'll be able to add, if it's say if it's a HUD voucher, a non-governmental voucher, like a nonprofit or a local state voucher, the entity name, address, etc. And then if the residents are a part of those programs, you can actually denote that. And then the
How do you denote that?
Sorry. So you could do that from you'd have to have your affordable housing set up in AppFolio, which I think we can probably cover in another call. But you can actually denote if a unit is an affordable unit within your database, or if a resident is receiving subsidized housing.
Is that on the property page, on the tenant page, on
tenant page or property page? So yeah, I'd be happy to cover that in another call.
Okay.
And we can definitely schedule that, and that might be a good thing to cover for folks that are wanting to understand more about the affordable housing settings. But I'll defer to you on that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll mark it down as a note. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. All right. But yeah, that pretty much covers the general settings within AppFolio. Any questions? I know that the last half I had to kind of speed up because I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but any other questions or comments, thoughts? I'm checking the chat too. Okay. And for those that had to drop off, I believe this was being recorded, so we can, send this out to everybody if you wanted to just review the training today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vanessa. I really appreciate you joining us on this webinar and making time for us each month. I'll go ahead, I'll send out the recording to everyone in the network, and we'll see you guys on the next first Wednesday of the month.